Hi, everyone. It's Randall Dunn, head of school, here to talk to you about our institutional goals.
Hi, my name is Eleanor Majid. I am Latin's Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And I will work with Randall today on this video to explain to you our institutional goals for diversity, equity, and inclusion.
So thank you, Eleanor. And my task on this video is to really share with you some of the context behind how we develop these institutional goals for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then Eleanor will spend some time and really dive a little bit deeper into the actual goals themselves and how and express how those will be um, used and followed at school. So first off, let me say that the start of us thinking about um, establishing these goals or the need to establish these goals really began after the death of and the killing of George Floyd, where I reached out to the community and expressed a need for us to really engage around the topic of race in our country. I asked the community to share their thoughts and their sentiments with me, and we heard from the community. We heard from current families, from alumni, current students. We heard from a number of folks who had just had very negative and traumatic experiences in the Latin community, and we listened. We followed up to the emails with conversations, and we spent time engaging with people who had such terrible experiences here. In addition to that, our students created a group called Demanding Accountability. They also had conversations with us and had demands of the school to be better and do better. And again, we took that feedback um, as well as feedback from diversity coordinators within the school, from our alumni community, from our current parent community, and put those together to create the institutional goals uh, that drive us now. We have begun to implement those goals, and Eleanor will spend some time and uh, share how these goals came together and how we have begun the work currently to implement them in the school.
Mhm. Thank you, Randall. I just would like to add quickly that as you start to see the goals and we work through them, they, based on all of the feedback that we received, that Randall spoke about, in addition to our climate assessment data from our consultant, Dr. Derek Gay, that was the survey was taken in the spring of 2020. We took all that data and we were able to put the goals in five different categories. So there's the category of representation, accountability, professional development, education, inclusion, and curriculum. And so when we start to go through the goals, you'll be able to see um, how we came up with some of these action steps based on these buckets. So the first goal is in the representation bucket, which is around hiring and retaining more faculty and staff of color. And one more note, as we go through these goals, you will see things that you will think like, oh, well, I thought they were already doing that, or how could they not have been doing that already, right? And I just want you to know that this is something that these are goals that there are some ongoing goals that we've always been working on and that we recognize from all the information that we've been given that we need to spend more time really focusing in on these goals because we do need to do better in these areas, right? So you're going to see some things that you may be surprised to see or that you may have questions about. And again, we are open to feedback if you have it. So when I think about the hiring and retaining more faculty and staff of color, right, there are the action steps underneath, which I'm not going to read out loud because I know you can see it. But just to give you a few points there around the hiring piece, you know, we do need to do a better job of hiring and also retaining our faculty and staff of color. We're at about 22% faculty and staff of color, and we have about 39% students of color throughout the school. And so it is our goal to increase the number of faculty and staff of color. One of the ways that we can do that is by conducting implicit bias training for everyone who is involved in our hiring process. And so having everyone have the same goals around hiring, the same understandings around hiring, and why we hire the way that we do, and what kinds of things we need to question about our processes. We are going to work with department chairs, staff directors, senior administrators, et cetera, to work on implicit bias training. We also want to review the places where we actually receive um, our resumes and our potential leads for teachers and staff, because sometimes those acquisition sources don't always have the representation that we're looking for around faculty and staff of color. And based on the climate assessment data, you'll see here that there was a need for there's an express need for more Asian teachers in the lower school, and then in the climate assessment again, more express needs for Black and Latino teachers in the middle and upper school. And then we also want to continue to evaluate and create our current and then create additional internal support structures to retain faculty and staff of color. So not only is hiring important, but retention is important as well. And our current faculty and staff of color are going to be essential in that process. Accountability. This is one of the, Randall mentioned earlier about the students who are part of Dependent Accountability. This is the place where so many of their goals came from, of their demands came from around accountability, right? So creating that culture for accountability for racist and discriminatory behavior. So we have done that in many ways. We've actually kind of started some of that process already with the implementation of the bias incident reporting in the middle and the upper school. And we have found, and we have started to have conversations around introducing restorative justice practices feels like the right collaboration between the incidents of bias reporting and the restorative justice practices. That feels like a good way to bring that educational piece into our community. And so we are making efforts in those ways as well. And then making sure that there is educational pieces for faculty and staff as well as students. And really everyone around the school, because we also recognize that this is not just accountability for our faculty and staff and our students, but it's accountability for everyone in our community. If we're going to create an inclusive space, we have to be better about holding each other and our community members accountable. And then also making transparent the policies and practices related to that. So everyone has an understanding of what they should and should not be doing and how we as a school will handle that. If we look at inclusion, here's one that is probably the hardest to measure and the goal that will take um, more creativity and more time and more effort really around creating the strategy for improving feelings for inclusivity for Black and Latino Latinx students. This came directly from our climate assessment data. Dr. Derek Gay has already spoken to our faculty and staff, our senior admin team, and our board, and a part of our parent association, and will speak to the rest of the community in December to share the climate assessment results. But in the climate assessment, it was very clear that our Black and Latino students were having a very different experience from any of the rest of their peers. And so it's tough to measure inclusion, but we are working with the ways around, and you can see the action steps here, evaluating feedback mechanisms, audit current support structures, and then evaluate the programs and initiatives through those lenses of protecting and incorporating the perspectives of these underrepresented identities. So this is one that, again, it doesn't stop any work that we're doing in any other way, but it does say this is something that we really need to focus on because this is very important right now in our community. Professional development and education. You will see, you've seen throughout the action steps, there seems to be some kind of professional development, some kind of education in each of our different goals. But it's really important for us to have that as its own bucket to make sure that we are focusing and giving it the attention it needs. So around embedding DEI work into our culture by committing resources to programming and education for all constituencies. And so we have already been doing this for a number of years, but also ramping up in ways and really tailoring it to what we need right now. And so work with parent association, board of trustees, alumni board is something that we are going to continue to implement, and where it's not there, actually implement it, and then continue to provide the training for our larger parent guardian community, and then the intentional onboarding for new employees, parents and guardians and students upon their arrival to Latin. And then we have already started to incorporate DI professional development for faculty and staff and admin, that is embedded into their their day, like their school day, their work day. And we can hope to continue to make that something that is ongoing. And the last one is curriculum, and that's around examining and adjusting curriculum to better reflect, represent, include underrepresented perspectives school-wide across all disciplines. This also was a very big theme within the demanding accountability demands. They really, in the classroom, do students feel a connection to what they are learning? Are their identities represented in our curriculum? And what do we need to do better in order to make sure that happens? And so we adopted Teaching Tolerance's social justice standards in 2017, but we want to continue to work with our faculty to make sure that is incorporated in a way that is felt by all students, and also that all teachers are able to teach in their classrooms. And then we want to look at do a scope and sequence of our diversity, equity, and inclusion work throughout the curriculum, and find out where we need to do more in that way, and maybe, where we need to give more professional development education to our teachers. So this is a quicker overview of our goals, and I'll turn it back over to Randall.
Great, thank you, Eleanor. Thank you. So you see that we have spent substantial time after this summer, the work in putting together these institutional goals, and the work is ongoing. It started. It feels good at school in terms of ramping it up and attending to what's necessary to make sure that we keep ourselves accountable for these goals. The one thing, in addition to all the things that have been described, that we're also doing that illustrates our sincere desire to make sure we make significant change over time, is that in cooperation with the Board of Trustees, we are creating dashboards to be able to examine these goals as we move forward, to say, as we look back, that we have made progress. We want to make sure that in time, we have the opportunity to actually make real, measurable progress on all of these institutional goal areas. And the work in broad strokes, as well as in fine action steps, is taking place throughout the school. So thank you for listening to this recording and viewing us here. We will also be sending out written versions of this that you will be able to engage with. And we also have some times to sign up for a Zoom call and participation. Those sessions are limited in number so that we can have conversations. So we're eager to have you take a look at this, engage with us. There are dates and times for you to sign up for. We look forward to engaging with you live, but thank you for taking the opportunity to look at this recording. And we really appreciate it, and we'll see you on the live version of this. Thank you.
Thank you.